So what interests me, there's a lot of things I'd like to tell you about. I'd like to tell you a little bit about me. I'd like to tell you a little bit about how I make my art and why it's titled Life in a Garden with Gods. So what I'd like to know is, what else would you like to know? What would you like to hear? More about how I do things?
Yes.
Or why I do things?
Yes.
So a little bit about me. I am an artist. I create art that's inspired by everyday Colorado nature. And I was interviewed recently, and one of the questions in the interview was, when did you know that you were an artist? Did it happen all of a sudden, or was it something that happened over a period of time? And my answer was, I knew I was an artist the day I declared I am an artist. And well, that means a lot to me, so I'll say more. The idea of failing and embarrassing myself in a community of great artists was certainly a challenge to get past. But that's the way I like to do things. When I decide I'm going to do something, I jump in with both feet. So that'll help you understand more about how I do. I'll tell you this much of some of these stories about how I got started as an artist. I used to hike with my dog, and we hiked literally thousands of miles together. And I thought how nice it would be if I had a little camera in my pocket and I could take pictures of Eddie. And so I now have thousands of pictures of Eddie. Eddie is gone. He passed over the Rainbow Bridge some while ago, but my computer keeps playing back all these pictures of him all day long. So I alternately tear up and talk. Sometimes Carol goes by my office and says, "Who are you talking to?" in there as I speak to Eddie. And I bought a point and shoot camera partly because I'm losing my vision and my eyes were getting poorer and poorer. So I can't see what's on the dials. I can't see the numbers. I can't figure. So if it was too complex, it wasn't going to work. So I got a point and shoot camera and got all these thousands of pictures of Eddie's. And when Eddie left and I was grieving as I was hiking, I thought, wouldn't it be great if I would do something more serious with a camera? And I decided I would learn photography. So I went to YouTube. Oh, the first thing I did is I looked for a book, and I found a book, ebook, How to Make Fine Art Photography with a Point and Shoot Camera. Yeah, that's for me. So I read the book, and it got me started, but it didn't cover all the bases. So I jumped in and I went to YouTube. Do you know you can learn anything on YouTube? You can learn brain surgery on YouTube.
Let's hope not.
I tried to do some brain surgery, but nobody wanted to accommodate me. So I spent, Carol can tell you, I spent hours and hours on YouTube watching tutorials, initially to figure out how to use a camera. And I kind of came to terms with doing it intuitively and feeling the adjustments rather than trying to read everything, which I couldn't do. So I started taking pictures and all of a sudden, and posting them on Facebook, and people would make comments, and then I learned that not only can I take pictures, but there was all this software that would allow me to manipulate pictures. So that's for me. I started manipulating pictures and finding software and finding techniques that would allow me to do that. And then as I posted those online, people were writing me comments. I love your work. I went, oh, I have work. That's a great thing. I have work and people like it. And shortly after that, without considering the consequences, I said, today I am an artist. And the way I do my work is, and part of the reason for the title of the show, we live a block from the trailhead to Garden of the Gods Park. I walk into Garden of the Gods, I hike every day. My photos are all spontaneous. So I don't plan them, I don't do a photo shoot. Whatever talks to me is what gets photographed that day. And what I photograph is what has spiritual energy. I am not a religious person, but I am a very spiritual person. So the title of Life in the Garden with Gods has several meanings for me. One of them is the spiritual energy that we all share, the essence of our creation, and the essence of all nature. So when I'm out, since I probably was about 10 years old, I've been hiking alone in the woods forever. I love every blade of grass. And I'm a crazy person. I caress things as I walk on my hikes. I hold them in my hands so I can feel them. I talk to them and they talk to me. I know you won't think that's crazy because you're standing here. You wouldn't be here if you didn't expect to hear that. And I find things accidentally, or maybe because the gods have pointed me to them. That thing back in the corner, that piece is called Sanctum. And that piece happened the way a lot of my pieces happen. I walk right past that, and something made me stop and go back. And sometimes I feel it and I have to go back, or sometimes I catch a glimpse of something out of the corner of my eye and I go back, and it was speaking to me, and I poked my head and a camera lens in between some branches and got that piece of sanctum, that sanctuary, that hiding place that I feel safe in, and that has a bit of magic and spirit in it. So that's usually the way most of my pieces happen. Every piece in this room either came from the Garden of the Gods, except for those two up on the top. The peony came because it was the only peony bloom in our yard this year. And I took it in our front yard, and I love to do flower portraits. And I loved spending every minute of caressing those petals and getting them to look like that. And what has been done there is I've used a number of techniques. I use overlays. I do digital painting, so you'll see some different colors in that peony than you would normally expect to see in a peony. I like to make my art, for the most part, soft, not hard-edged, and certainly more abstract and impression rather than a representation, but that's as close to a representation as we get. That was my front yard, not in the garden, but a block away, okay? You'll let it into the club. And the one next to it is called Time Traveler, and in that picture of that cornflower, the spirit of her flying through this time and space to get to her next stop in the universe, wherever that is what motivated me to do that. So I made her fly, and I gave her energy to rise and ascend, which is what I was feeling when I was with her. And that was a somewhat different technique. I used software to bend and twist and modify and put energy waves in. And some of these paintings, like those, they work really well on canvas and not so great on metal, which I'll talk about in a minute. But those needed that extra piece of softness and texture that the canvas would provide, and so that's why you see them that way. So that's one kind of spirit, and that's the kind of spirit that I'm talking about. And I'm in love with those and will never stop loving them. I could caress that easy for another several years, and it would still make me quite happy to do that. The other parts of this work, I started working with metal, trying some of the same techniques, and I kind of fell for it. It's kind of got a hold of me now. So not all things seem to work on metal, and not all things seem to work on canvas. So I kind of go back and forth and decide which ones might work best. So there was a profusion of oak leaves, which got twisted up in this windstorm that was my emotion at the time that happened, developed rather quickly. These are abstracts that I made out of things that I loved. I'll just tell you what they are and how they came about. This was actually a sunrise over red rocks in Garden of the Gods. You can barely see parts of the red rock formation here. This actually started as a photo of those red rocks, but the energy got me moving in a certain direction. And once it starts, I can't stop it. So it just comes on the page by itself, which is when I'm having the most fun and when the work seems to be the best. It just makes itself. So I twisted it with software, and I blurred it with software, and I gave it motion with software, and that's the result. These were all similar efforts. These were 3 wood roses that were in a dry wash in the Garden of the Gods park. And I love these little critters. They're precious when you find them. It's too beautiful to be where they're standing. So 3 wood roses on top of a red zinnia. And those were merged together again with the techniques of blurring, twisting, bending out of shape. Pixels are great to manipulate, and I make no mess. Nothing spills. I don't have to clean up anything. This was a lovely hollyhock all by itself, but for some reason it kept asking for more. So I made about 6 hollyhocks out of it and layered them into this creation. Same kind of thing, all enabled by software. So I had the pleasure of standing here last Friday, I think it was last Friday, talking to people about my art for the first time ever, and listening to what people say about my art and what their experience was. So when I was being interviewed, I was asked different questions about my art. How has art changed me? One way it's changed me is I see differently. I thought I saw a lot, but since, forgive the term, focusing on art, I see differently. I see lines, I see shapes, I see colors, I see light, I see things differently. And perhaps this enters my mind every once in a while. Perhaps I'm seeing it for the last time. Because I have MD and it's inevitable, unless they come up with another vaccine or cure sometime soon, there will be a point in time where I can't do this anymore. But as long as I'm doing it, so I really look differently and I see differently, and it's really wonderful. It's just like a drunk on a high, you know. I'm just drinking it all in. And I attended a class, an online class around the same time a little while ago, and the instructor asked the question, what do you want to have happen to your art? What do you want to have happen to this art next? And my answer was immediate. What I want to have happen to this art is I want it to be used. What I want to do is invite a viewer into contact for a moment with the sublime. And if I accomplish that, I've lived my life as well as I would love to live it. That's my goal and that's my hope. And people were standing here last Friday telling me that they had that connection without me saying a word. So it kind of accommodates the other part of my wish for art, which is, and I can't tell you exactly why, but I would like to leave artifacts after I'm gone. I know that sounds crazy. Why would I want to do that? As an ego thing? Okay, maybe it's ego. I just want to say, I was here. Hey, look, you guys, I was here. Remember Kilroy was here? Or was that way before your time? I was here. So if I get those two things, if I am able to provide a moment of contact with the sublime from any of my work, and my work ends up lasting for a while, long after I've created it, I'll be a really happy person. The last part about the gods is about miracles. I believe in miracles. I believe we create miracles. I believe we facilitate miracles in others, or for ourselves, as others do for us. I want to give you an example from an old part of my history, because it's a great story. Years ago, I ran a recreational vehicle business. And we had an annual show in a great big building, and about a third of my annual income came from this show. So it was really important to me. And I had a lot of motorhomes entered in this show. And they were all parked in the parking lot. And I had all the keys, and I was in the final motorhome driving to Niagara Falls Convention Center. And I was on the bridge, the Rainbow, or not the Rainbow Bridge, but the Grand Island Bridge, nearly ascending to the top part of the hill in the bridge when I ran out of gas in this big motorhome. We had put a gallon or two in each motorhome so it would be less dangerous and more controllable. So there I was on the bridge with no gas with this big motorhome, with all the keys to all the vehicles that are supposed to be in the show in my pocket. And there I am, and this old, funky, rusty Buick, an old, funky car, pulls up, stops in front of me, and this man with a white beard and white hair gets out, and he says, "Can I help you?" And I told him my problem, and he says, "Hang on a minute." He went to his truck, and he got this big rugged chain, and he hooked it up to the Buick, and he hooked up this giant motorhome next to this funky car. And he pulled me over the crest of the hill on the bridge. We disconnected. I said to him, "Man, you are a godsend. You're a miracle." He said, "Nah, I'm just a man with a chain." And he got in his car and he disappeared. And being at the peak, I was able to use gravity to get down the other side and get to the gas station at the bottom of the hill. When I went home that night, I told my family I had met God on the Grand Island Bridge. And I think of the gods in our lives, the wonderful miracles, the people that show up, the Abigail Carissers, who give you your first show in the gallery, and do lots of other wonderful things with gratitude. So I'm really grateful for the life I have, for the ability to do this and the opportunity to do this. And I appreciate you being interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Joseph.